If you ask me, and why wouldn't you, returns are about as much fun as a root canal. You know what I mean. But returns happen if you sell items. It's the nature of the game. We've done several videos on this channel showing you why you must accept returns. It helps your business. It increases your profit. It makes you wealthier. And if you pay for the return shipping, even wealthier you will become. Some of you disagree with that. Okay, that's fine. That's not what exactly this is about. This is about you're going to get a return. When does it hurt your account? Well, you would think it hurts your income, that's for sure. And that's true temporarily, but you're in this for the long haul. You're not in this for the short run, for the next sale or the last sale. You're in this for maybe years, maybe decades. I've been selling now for over a quarter of a century on eBay, fairly heavily from the beginning. In all that time, I've had returns, and the returns are meaningless. My largest return was my most costly return. It was meaningless in the scheme of things, and you have to keep that mindset. But eBay does look at your returns and can downgrade your account, not just your search, but they can take away your top-rated seller status if you have it. A top-rated seller is something you should all strive for. It's fairly easy to get, and it's fairly easy to lose if you get sloppy. So if you have too many returns, you're going to lose your top-rated seller. But it depends on the type of return you have. You can look at your recent return history in the last year or so by going to your Performance tab in Seller Hub. You can also get there through the My eBay if you still use that, and you can look at your seller level and you can scroll down to the returns section. Now, a return rate of 0.5% or higher is considered high with eBay. Now, you'll see I have 0.85. In the last 1,175 transactions, eBay says I've had 10 returns. And let's look at this because it breaks down the selling category you have returns in. In computers and tablets, that could be anything. That could be like a screen cleaner in there. So it could be electronics related to computers or not, but I have a 50% return rate. I've only sold 2 of these in a long time that were in that eBay category. 1 of them came back. Consumer electronics, I've had a third of them come back, 1 out of 3. Sporting goods, 2 out of 23. Other categories, out of all of my categories combined, I've had 6 out of 1,147 items. Of this 1,175 transactions, all that added up, looking at the numbers, eBay says I have a 0.85%. That's almost 1% return rate. Is that good or bad? A 0.5% return rate can knock you out of top-rated seller. And yet, I've been a top-rated seller for as long as they've had it. I've never been knocked out of being top-rated seller. And most of you won't either unless you just stop listing as often as you should. If you stop trying to sell as much as you do, you'll lose your top-rated status because you won't have the sales needed to maintain it. But you can also lose it by having customer complaints go against you and have returns that are bad and have item not described returns and all of that. But a return is not a return is not a return. That's the great news. Out of all 10 returns I've had in the past 1,175 transactions, eBay considers 0 of them to be a bad return. Now, what do I mean by that? A bad return is a return that's your fault. If the buyer says INAD, item not as described, and she returns it, that's going to go against you. That's a bad return. If the buyer returns an item because it arrived damaged or the buyer claims it arrived damaged, that's going to be a bad return. That's going to count against you. It's your fault you didn't pack it well enough. I know FedEx drove over it and took no responsibility. It's still your responsibility, though, ultimately, to get this buyer the item packaged in a way that it arrives unbroken. Maybe an item was incomplete. Maybe an item was shipped they didn't buy. You shipped the wrong item and the buyer returns it and doesn't want that other item. Those are bad returns. Not one of my returns are bad. How do I know? How will you know? You should look at your return rate every month or well, it depends on how often you get returns. I get so few returns, I don't even think about looking. But if you get a return every month or 2, you should look at your return rate just to make sure you're not in trouble. What you do, no matter what this box says and no matter how bad that percentage looks, you need to click See All Returns. This is a misleading link. What eBay is really telling you here is if you click this link, it will give you all bad returns that you've had. Meaning, if you had a return for INAD, item not as described, if you shipped something and it broke, all of that, all of those reasons that are your fault, that is what you will see if you click See All Returns. I'm going to click it, and you can't really see this. Let me give you a smaller screen that I made earlier, and you still can't really see all of that. But anyway, it says Manage Returns up here, okay? We didn't find any results. I'm going to Wait a minute. Well, how could that be? My return rate is 10 items, 0.85%. I have almost a 1% return rate of my items. Why in the world does eBay say I have no returns? It's because I have no bad returns. Not one person has returned an item in the last 1,175 transactions that was my fault for the return. Every item was described accurately. Every item arrived unbroken. Of course, every item was shipped on time. They couldn't use the reason it got here too late. Out of these 10 returns I had, when I click see all returns, which really means show me all the returns that are my fault, I see 0. eBay will count not one of those 10 returns against my account. I will never lose top-rated seller status, even if I get 50 returns, if the returns are the buyer's fault or buyer's remorse. The buyer might click, I found a better price. The buyer might click, I changed my mind. The buyer might click several reasons that are available whenever the buyer does a return. As long as the buyer doesn't say it's your fault, you will never see in a return that when you click see all returns there, which means none of the returns you've had, no matter how many returns you have, if they're not your fault, eBay will not care that you've had that many returns. Secretly, I sort of hope eBay punishes buyers that return lots of items, buys lots of dresses and returns them after 2 days because she wore the dress and then she returned it, something like that. Hopefully eBay's working on those buyers as hard as they're working on us sellers, but they're probably not. But I bet they have an algorithm set up to watch for people who abuse their return policy. But as long as you have good returns and not bad returns, if see all returns produces 0 returns, that means you've had 0 bad returns. That means you're a great seller. That means you really work hard to make your business as accurate and as customer-centric as possible. That is how empires are built. If you have a different view about returns, let me know. I'm open to reproof and correction. Leave a comment below. Tell me where I'm wrong or tell me where you have a different view or perspective of this. I really welcome that.